Alex and I are here to basically kind of walk you through how we think about things and make it a little bit easier.
So we're going to start with a couple of definitions, what we think of is content and how you might adapt that to your environment. So really content is anything that embodies your brand values. All the photos and videos and games and interesting things that you put out into the world that's in service of your customer interactions and hopefully in service of your transactions, actually getting people to buy. So the marketing of that content is how we distribute it out into the world. And what we always like to talk about is it has to be valuable. You'll see some examples of valuable content, and maybe we'll show you some examples of not so valuable content. Your customers, your users, even your internal employees, they have to derive something from the content you're putting out there. Otherwise, it's probably not going to attract them, and it's not really going to drive the conversions that you want. And kind of encompassing this whole thing is content strategy. We believe very strongly that's your commitment to a plan that works for your business, your team, and your customers. And it's probably obvious that you have to create good content for your business. It's probably obvious, even the last part, to create good content for your customers. But it's as important to focus on your internal team. Josh has built a very large content team at Kind, but those are the people that day in, day out are actually thinking about what to put out into the world. How much does the content cost to produce? What's the ROI on it? So a really well executed content strategy kind of wraps that whole thing together. And of course, why does it matter? We're at an internet retailer conference, and more people are talking about content and how specific is it to e-commerce. It's really because of this funnel, and it might be a little bit hard for everyone to see, but we've all seen these kind of conversion funnels over the years where you start on the home page and your product page and all the way down to checking out. And what we've been preaching through the years, companies like ours and brands like Josh's, is that it's all about the UI, the placement of buttons and a red button versus a green button and kind of the momentum through the site that's led to conversion. And we were right, we were saying the right things over the years, but the game is changing. And we all pretty much get our user interfaces right these days. We pick the right color button, either red or green, but it's the specific content that you use throughout the funnel, be it early to create affirmation on a product page, all the way through creating security and confidence through checkout, that is ultimately going to lead to the greatest results of using content for your business. All right, so enough of the academic stuff. We're going to jump in. 7 keys to e-commerce content strategy success. And it starts with what we hope is the obvious one, though we come across some circumstances where it's not always that obvious. Align your content planning to your business goals. One of the first things we do when we go into a new partner and we start talking about some of their content strategy objectives is we say, well, what's your plan for this year? What are your goals for this year? What's your plans for the next 5 years? And then we start looking at some of the content they're putting on their website and putting out into the world. And we try to create our own mapping, like connecting the dots between what they're doing on social and what they're doing from a goal perspective. So it may seem obvious, but if you haven't written down those goals and if you don't know very specifically all of the investments in your content endeavors that are leading to those goals, then you probably need to deprioritize them and focus on something that's more important.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about how Kind thinks about business goals. So, Kind's business goal is pretty simple. Increase household penetration. We want more households to buy Kind. How are we going to go about this? Our goal is to increase awareness and relevancy with the target consumer. That target consumer for us is females between the ages of 25 and 44. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we go about it with 2 examples. This one is both an awareness and relevancy driver. Kind created a program called Kind Ambassadors. And what this is that we recruit celebrities, influencers, and the influential that have basically already said that they love Kind. They've raised their hand saying, we love you. And so we recruit them, and we offer them lots of free Kind snacks, some Kind swag, because we have really great Kind swag. And we also bring them into the team, so we ask their opinion on things. In return, we have really passionate people that have millions of followers that ultimately are going to continue to talk positively about us to them. And the reason why we do this is because Kind has a philosophy of being discovered, not marketed. Marketing might be a little bit too sell out for us, so we want to be discovered. And the reason why is because most people come into our brand via the recommendation of a trusted friend, through a registered dietitian or nutritionist, or through one of our charismatic field marketers that are handing out free samples. This creates kind of a one-on-one experience, and that one-on-one experience basically gives you a feeling of, this is a trustworthy small brand that I can really get behind. Our ambassadors help us extend that from awareness and relevancy standpoint. Another way we go about this is crafting a distinct content voice. So for us is, we try not to take ourselves way too seriously. We know who we are, we know who we're not, and we try to have a little bit of fun with it. So a good example would be that we're appreciative of wit. What we mean by that is we love a good pun. I am a marketer, so everybody marketers love good puns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of something that was actually out in the wild. What you see here is grab health by the nuts. This is something much older, before I was part of the marketing team, but everybody loves a slightly inappropriate joke on a billboard. And you'll see parts of our voice appearing here. So the first one is optimism, health. If somebody says they're healthy, they're an optimistic person, in our opinion. Grab health by the nuts, it's fun, witty. It's definitely unexpected for a CPG brand like Kind. And then finally, transparency, which is really important to us. So not only can you see through the packaging, but we're also saying the ingredients you can see and pronounce. So these are just an expression of how our content voice comes to life.
So the next thing we would like everyone to think about is stop being random with your content. We've all seen Twitter jacking or Twitter hashtag hijacking campaigns. None comes to mind perhaps as sharply as this one, because what better way to honor the tragedy of Pearl Harbor than with America's #1 hero, Mr. Spaghettio. The reaction when Spaghettios put this out into market a few years ago was pretty swift and pretty negative. And how random of Spaghettio to kind of associate themselves with something as tragic and historic as Pearl Harbor. The memes that started spreading kind of rapidly went around the internet like wildfire. I can't show you most of them. They were horribly, horribly inappropriate. But the purpose of this tip is just stop being random. You've laid out all these terrific plans, we hope, and goals for what you want your content to do. Be purposeful, be very specific with the way you go about it. So one thing you might start with is just a good inventory. Up on the screen right now, it's just a tool we use which helps a business to catalog all their content, put it into various different categories, rate it, rank it, and something that you might find useful is actually for all the different kinds of content you produce, let's say a product photo or a product description, all the way up to a marketing message, start jotting down how long it takes your team to do that, and maybe even you measure the expense of what it is to produce that individual content item. That's how down the road you're going to be able to start justifying and making the right decisions. There's another framework that we really like called grading, and this is done by a business, it's headquartered here in Chicago, called Ascendant. We've seen a framework that they use, and I'm pretty impressed by it. Ascendant is a very large wholesale distributor of office products, business products, break room like coffee, industrial supplies. They have over 180,000 products, and on a day-by-day basis, their content marketers have to figure out, well, which of these 180,000 am I actually going to invest my time in? And they've developed a pretty nice framework, actually, by someone sitting back there in the room. They grade their content, and they happen to use this grading. There might be a different one that's more appropriate for your business. And they say, for a particular product, is this a market-leading product? Do I need the best photos and 360s? Or maybe, as we kind of go down the road, maybe it's a more mundane product. Maybe I just need to capture the weight of the carton or the item number. Maybe that's enough for me to actually sell it. The other thing that we ask people to do is just do math with your content. So we redesigned the Saks Fifth Avenue website, and it's clear that they sell a lot of fashion products. So for them to invest in beautiful photography and runway shots of models in clothing, it probably makes sense. But we worked with another smaller fashion retailer a number of years ago, and they had a very interesting challenge. It cost them about $150 every time they styled, got a model, and shot and retouched and produced one of their images. But they had some products that they only were putting 10 online, and their gross margin for that product might have only been $10, $15, maybe $20. So you can kind of start seeing that just a basic analysis of what it costs to produce your content by the actual margin or the profit that you can make off it is probably a nice way that you can start figuring out where to invest. And also thinking about your channels, this is something that Josh was kind enough to allow me to put up here. So Kind has a blog right now. My guess is that probably many of you haven't seen it because it only gets 25 visitors a month. and there's more than that in here. It has a pretty horrible bounce rate, and it really is right now, it's a repository for anything and everything. But they need it because it's a kind of this corporate place where you shove things together. But the opposite of that, the non-random thing that Kind is doing now, is shifting all the resources that used to work on the blog over to Medium, which, as probably many of you know, is a tremendous place to curate and create this ongoing content magazine. And they've since increased to 2,500 viewers per article. Email subscriptions, social is going through the roof. They've been able to pull in all those influencers to start publishing for them. And I just think there's probably no finer example of a switch from something that's random and cluttered to something that's quite purposeful. The next thing is, the next tip is speaking to your users. It really is remarkable how much you can find out about your content just by talking to your customers, and also by talking to your employees, your customer service reps that are on the front lines with your customers. Get out into the field, get up from behind your desks, maybe go behind other people's desks, but actually speak to these humans. Because by getting in front of them and seeing how they interact with your content and what they like and what they don't and what they aspire to be and what repulses them will ultimately allow you to be successful. Here's an example of some user research that we actually are in the process of doing with Kind. I just want to play a short video of this first guy, Joe.
By nutritionists and other athletes to try different things, and I found them to have the widest variety. And I look at a lot of other stuff, but I always end up going back and trying another one of their bars. And so that's one of the things I really like about them. I can kind of indulge myself in one thing and then go back to the thing that I think is better for me because it's lower sugar or whatever it is. So it'd be great to be able to try little samples of them in some kind of way so that I could have gone through this process a lot quicker and narrowed down what I was looking for and then just started buying them in bulk.
So we heard a bunch of really powerful keywords that he said. He talked about variety. He talked about indulge. And then eventually he started sharing things about his purchasing cycle, that he wants to try some things and make his way all the way to bulk. So we're listening to that as user researchers, and we say, what kind of content do triathlete, crazy athletes like Joe and his cohort, his persona need? And it's likely those things that are going to show him that you could be healthy, but you can indulge and then kind of bring him along on the path to actually eventually buy more product.
And these videos are ultimately what allowed Alexander Interactive to win the Kind pitch. Was because it showed that they knew who our consumer was and knew what we were looking for.
Two more great examples, I think, of how users led us to something pretty clever. Here's a wonderful business, a client of ours, Supply House, one of the leading suppliers of plumbing and other industrial supplies online. And you see this product here, this Pro PEX ball valve 4 outlet, but we're showing you a picture of the box. Why? We never would have realized that the person that actually reorders this product for, let's say, a plumbing company that keeps a supply of them and loads them onto the truck before the plumber goes out for the day, the person that orders this product never actually sees what's inside the box. He works in the warehouse and he only sees what actually this thing looks like when it comes from the manufacturer. And by speaking to that user and a bunch more like it, we realized that it's actually among the most common people that shop on the Supply House website. And because of that, this company is now shooting a product shot of every single thing that they offer in the box. And another area that you can get insights from your users, of course, comes from your analytics. Here's a business, CPO Commerce. They sell pre-owned, certified pre-owned tools. And they found that there was a tremendous user demand out there for people that wanted these great big table saws, among other things, to spin around. So just like we would expect on Zappos to see our shoe spin around, you might not have realized that an enthusiast who does a lot of woodworking wants to see their saw spin around. Well, it turns out the analytics showed them there's a 44% increase in visitors. So the deal there is, once you find that out from talking to your users, just do it more and more. Keep doing it.
Okay, now we're going to talk about designing content, not pages. So content is what's actually on the page. It is not the page itself. In this mobile social world, we want to make sure that your content can go everywhere and can also go anywhere. Remember that Kind's business goal was to increase household penetration. Kind and kindness kind of go hand in hand, so we decided to create a program around kindness and launch it on World Kindness Day. We didn't create this day. This is actually one of those semi-official holidays. But ultimately, we launched it, and we were thinking to ourselves, what do we do? Do we just create a page on kindsnacks.com? Do we create a microsite? Do we create an app? Do we just send out an email? Let me show you what we actually did.
To find a way to get more people to try their snacks while still making the world a little kinder. So together, we created Kind Awesome, a program that turns people's kind acts into kind snacks. Let's see how it works, shall we? This is Angus. One morning, Angus sees his friend Petunia saving the elevator for Anne. Angus wants to recognize Petunia's kindness, so he visits howkindofyou.com, a site we created that turns a thank you tweet from Angus into a real kind bar for Petunia. He simply enters Petunia's Twitter handle, hits send, and poof! Petunia receives a lovely little custom package of kind bars in the mail, of which she eats and enjoys thoroughly. Afterwards, Petunia joins in by spotting another kind act and sending a couple kind bars of her own. And so it goes, on and on and on in a never-ending chain of kindness. Then on November 13th, aka World Kindness Day, we spread the word about Kind Awesome. To start, we sent our closest, most famous friends their very own kind spotting kit. It included 1 illustrated guide to spotting kindness, 1 pair of high-tech kind spotters, 15 Kind Awesome cards, and 3 kind bars, flavors varied. Our famous friends loved the kids, so they posted about them for their many fans to see. Then we started spreading kindness everywhere. We covered New York City with wild postings, spread the word all over the internet, reminded folks to be kind on their commute, and enlisted social influencers everywhere to use the program. We even got a few of those influencers to star in our own Instagram videos.
But you'll notice that we created lots of content, but we made sure that it was the right content for the right channel. What we post to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram might not be the exact same thing that we want to be posting to Snapchat. Snapchat, we want to be a little bit more irreverent. It's definitely a younger demographic, and so it's just making sure that it's the right content for the right channel. Now we're going to talk a little bit about building to scale. And what we mean by this is setting up your team and your content for success. And the ways to do that is to, number 1, staff appropriately. Number 2 is to create systems that would basically create efficient workflows for quality content. And then finally, creating a culture of content. So to grow a culture of content, Kind requires every single new Kind team member or employees at Kind to create a new employee or new hire video. This is required as kind of a rite of passage at Kind, and these can either be comedic sketches or music videos, kind of whatever they want. They have the resources for it. This basically forces not only marketers, but finance, operations, field marketing, everybody to realize that telling stories is part of their job also. And here's a quick little clip of the type of quality that we do. So you'll notice it's kind of a rip on Star Wars. And then it immediately breaks into a Backstreet Boys type video. We do not have the sound on right now for one reason, is because we don't have the rights to Backstreet Boys everybody. And also #KindTeam, just a fun social helpful fact is the FTC requires you to disclose when you are an employee of a company sharing something, so ours is #KindTeam. So this is an example of a new hire video at Kind. A little bit about my organization. So I have an editorial lead that is responsible for all the copy that goes out there and managing all of our writers. She also is responsible for producing all of the video content and working with production companies. I also have a social lead that is responsible for community management and doing our monthly photo shoot with a professional photographer, stylist, and photo studio. We have a media lead that's responsible for managing all of our influencers and ambassadors, and also working with paid social media. Paid social media, just another helpful hint, is social media is not very social without some amplification, so definitely put some money behind things to reach people. And then we have an insights lead, and that person's job is to look at all of our content and grade it and see whether or not it's actually having a return on investment. I'm expanding my team. I eventually want to bring on a design lead, so I can bring a little bit more of the design and aesthetics pieces in-house. And also production lead, because my editorial lead is a little bit overwhelmed managing an entire writer network and also production companies for video. You'll notice that there's a director up top. That's me. I'm management, so I don't really do much. Kidding. So I'm responsible for overall creative strategy, and I'm kind of a de facto creative director, making sure everything feels on brand, and ultimately responsible for the success or failure of my team. Then finally, let's talk about not being afraid to fail. So we talked a little bit about Kind Awesome earlier. Here's some fun facts that came out of that.
first week, 20,000 Kind acts were recognized with Kind snacks. Kind Awesome became a trending topic on Twitter. The campaign had 238 million overall impressions, and Kind had more engagement on social in our first day than all of 2015 combined.
That's amazing, right? Incredible. I mean, that was over a 4-week period. My opinion, it kind of put Kind a little bit more on the map. But you remember that our goal was to increase household penetration, and I just did a program on kindness. Interesting fun thing is, we found out that kindness doesn't necessarily drive sales. People want to hear about the products. So, while our goal was to increase household penetration, we found out that kindness actually drives loyalty and relevance. So eventually the idea is that it helps us out, but it was kind of an unexpected thing, so it helped us out with another part of our business goal.
Our last tip here is about measurement and holding all the content that you're producing accountable. A lot of us over the years, again, similar to that conversion funnel earlier on, have done a pretty good job at looking at our analytics and figuring out where we can invest in various user experience upgrades. But we need to take that exact same discipline to the content that we create. Here's actually a project that we're working on for Internet Retailer right now. Internet Retailer, as many of us in the room know, they sell great guides, they have great editorial content, there's a lot of things going on in their ecosystem around that content, but they're increasingly getting into the world of selling custom research and insights on the very industry that all of us live in, that we kind of all feed off of and we all improve off of. And this interesting thing came up that we're looking at their site and their traffic, and there's this one particular type of product that they sell that they want to sell a lot more of. It's a high margin product, plus it's things that all you in the room really value. And our immediate guess was, all right, well then let's just make the best product page in the world, the product page to end all product pages for this particular thing that they want to sell. But we learned on our journey, actually looking at the analytics, that the product page, in this case, only led to actually 11 page views that ultimately resulted in a conversion. And instead, it was the insights themselves, all the charts, which many of you maybe perhaps have seen on the IRCE site, all the charts, the quotes, the little tips that we get by email that we can see throughout their different digital ecosystem. Those are the pages that if you saw, you were then much more likely to convert and actually buy this premium product from them. So it kind of flipped us, and we said, well, maybe we do invest a little bit upgrading this product page, but let's instead put a lot more of our efforts towards upselling and finding other ways to show you the depth of content that they have when you're looking at their various charts. And another example that I think is very demonstrative of how testing content and making sure that it really is accountable to your business goals is up here on the screen now. There's this company, Biz Filings. You could go to them in order to create an LLC or an S Corp online if you wanted to start a business. And this is kind of the main entry page to starting an LLC. And we had a number of different variations of this page, and there were a lot of internal debates. Does a page like this need a photo? Does it need all sorts of various things? And we tested it, and we played with a smiling guy or a smiling woman. We tested with various lines of copy, and we learned quite easily from the software that in the end, actually showing a happy smiling man, in this case, you're actually seeing a range of prices, but it turns out the eventual winner was when we just showed the lowest price that the thing was offered for. So, we always preach transparency, but sometimes actually just showing the lowest price and then giving someone the opportunity to buy more really worked. And in this case, using the software and holding it from an analytics perspective accountable led us to it. And the last example, back to our friends at Supply House again, they really produce the best content on the internet in the plumbing space. No one makes better boiler videos than these guys do. And we're working on their site, and we're making some upgrades now. And we learned just how important a video was in the process of converting you, let's say, on buying a boiler. And again, our immediate thought was, so let's jump to the product page. Let's make this amazing product page and put the video front and center. But we actually looked at the analytics, and we learned that if we start you on your journey, or rather those users that started on their journey in their video library section and saw the wealth of knowledge and became confident that they're buying from the right place, that Supply House is a vendor that ultimately is going to sell them the best boiler at the best price, 3 times the revenue versus if you saw that video on the product page. So again, looking at your analytics and being certain that you're tracking how things are working is ultimately yielding success. I'll skip over hitting all the different points of actual accountability. You can download this later, but it's ultimately anchored in setting very consistent KPIs, measuring how your content is performing, and the only one I'll focus in on is this reviewing regularly. Don't just collect the data, do something with it. So for those of you who are managers, or for those of you who are actually going back to your bosses and recommending some fancy new tool that you find out in the exhibition hall, force yourselves to say to your boss or your employees, how are you going to use that new tool? On what cadence are you actually going to look at the various analytics and be making decisions on what to do with it in the future? And then the idea is, of course, just do it over and over and over again. Find things that work, pick the winners, and have your cat make it into every internet retailer presentation at least once. So in summary, these are the kind of key takeaways that we'd love everyone to think about when crafting their content strategy, ranging from goals all the way to measurement. And just the one small plug, which Josh and I are allowed to make, is we are both here and hiring. So if you're interested in either the fast-paced agency world or working for one of the best consumer brands in the world, come see us afterwards. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We've come up to time, and you guys have the breaks of being the one right before lunch break. So if you do have questions, we can take one or two in the aisle. If you want to cut into your lunchtime, the mic is in the center aisle. I can't tell if people are running
No
to
way
lunch
we're
or
keeping
coming
you
to the
from your
mic.
lunch. Oh, we got a question.
We got one. Okay, great.
When you transitioned from your blog, and this is for Kind, to the content zine on the website, did you use a particular platform to do it, or did you create a proprietary tool to do it?
So our blog is just using, on our current website, is just using WordPress, but Medium is its own publishing platform. So we didn't actually transfer anything over. We started clean because our blog was terrible.
All right, great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we'll wrap it with that. And if you have any more questions for Josh and Alex, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer them in the back of the room.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. We regroup here at 1:15. Come on back.